Cassette tapes. My dad died 3 months ago, and we only recently found out what he was leaving behind for us to inherit. My mother got the house, as was fair. She had cats to care for. Toby got Dad's car, a vintage Mercedes in mint condition if you didn't count the root beer stain on the back seat. And what about me? What about his oldest son? Cassette tapes. I knew Dad was a strange man, only getting stranger with age. He wasn't that old when he died, just 52 when Mom found him dead as a doornail in the backyard. But when I'm left with the inheritance of over a dozen boxes of useless tapes, I begin to think he must have just went senile early. For as long as I could remember, he'd been collecting them. Cassette tapes of every make and model, stuffed in a shoebox and labeled from A to Z. They just aren't any old tapes, Matthew. These tapes are special. He'd always told me when I asked. But why are they special? I never got a straight answer from him, just a cryptic smile or wink, and I'll tell you when you're older. He would never play the tapes for us. Whenever we'd ask, he'd get this serious look on his face. The expression looked so out of place on him. He was usually so jovial, a party kind of man, a joking kind of man. I got older, and he never told me. He never got the chance to, I suppose. So here I am, stuck with the seemingly endless supply of cassette tapes. They're categorized in his ledgers, titled as incidents, labeled with various numbers and given a nickname. It always struck me that they were labeled as a set, even with dozens of different brands coming from dozens of different places. It was baffling to me how Dad could go to any thrift store or salvage army and sift through the shelves of tapes and find exactly what he was looking for. He'd only find one or two, if he was lucky, which he'd slip into the pocket of his old bomber jacket before offering to buy me ice cream in exchange for joining him on his hunts. The boxes are stacked in my office, about 14 of them in total, all full of the tapes. Dad's cassette player sits on my desk next to the pile of ledgers, battered and scratched in places, a strip of yellowing masking tape with his name written on it pasted to the side. I pull my chair out from the desk and sit down in it heavily, letting out a long sigh. I take off my glasses and set them up on the table, pinching and massaging the bridge of my nose. My headache has only gotten worse since this morning. Where am I supposed to put the boxes? I don't have any use for them, but I can't bring myself to toss them, not when I know they meant so much to my dad. My housemates have been understanding enough, giving me the space I need to process my father's death, but I can't exactly ask them to let me use the limited storage space we have to stow 14 boxes of junk. I lean back in my chair, leaning my head against my hand. I regard the stack of boxes like I'm trying to win a staring contest. Why tapes? Couldn't he have collected something more useful, like vintage toys or antique books? Something interesting. A conversation started that didn't involve me explaining my father's unique kind of crazy that led to him spending most of his disposable income on tapes. After a long, quiet moment of giving the stack of boxes my best rendition of the Kubrick stare, I finally stand up, picking out box A. I set it down on the desk and remove the lid. They're just how I remember them, neatly placed in the cardboard box, in 2 rows going down the box lengthways. They fit snugly, without any space to shift or rattle about. I run my fingers down the row of tapes, making that pleasing zipping noise of nail against plastic. I pick out a random one and flip it over. Incident 38, Box A, Aurora Borealis, 1968. I sit back down and shift to face my desk. I fidget with the tape in one hand, tapping my thumb against the side of it as I crack open the ledger A. It's cataloged on the second page, Aurora Borealis, 1968, Confession of Sam Ketterman. Transcript from page 40 through 42. I flip through, finding the page quickly, then turning my attention to the cassette player. The lid of it pops open and I insert the tape with a soft click, watching the player wear to life with a sizzling crackle.
Is it on? Okay.
The man's voice is hoarse and tired.
My name is Sam Ketterman. I was told to, record this tape by Dr. Lethay, my therapist, as a way to process my trauma.
There's a long pause, the sound of shuffling papers.
This tape is in regard to the incident that occurred during my hiking trip in Alaska in 1968.
He clears his throat.
Phil and I, were hiking near Fairbanks. It was a clear few days out in the woods, snow coating the ground and our bags heavy on our backs. It was just going to be a 2-day camping trip to hike out to where the light pollution wasn't so bad and we could see the stars and the lights. I was a little younger than Phil. I was in my early 20s then. and Phil was in his 30s. He was more experienced with the trails than I was, so he took the lead, helping us get up the foothills surrounding Mount Hayes. The first day passed without incident, but then I started getting the feeling we were being watched. When we were trekking that day, it got so quiet, just the sound of the wind in the trees and the crunch of the snow under our boots. When I brought it up to him, he said it was just in my head, but I didn't buy it. There was just something wrong to me. When we found the wrecked tent, we should have turned back, but we didn't.
It's probably just a bear or something, or they left it behind.
We made a camp a few miles away from the wrecked tent, lit a fire and got ready to sleep. I only got about an hour of rest before Phil shook me awake. I wanted to go for a walk, he said. Just a little walk to enjoy the lights. I agreed. They were really beautiful, flickering and shimmering overhead. The woods were calm and quiet, until they weren't. We heard the footsteps of the trees first. I was on edge, so I immediately turned to look. It looked like a person at first, a shadow. Phil spoke up first, calling out to it.
Nice night for a walk, huh?
He was always a friendly guy. I think maybe if he didn't say anything, he would still be here. It shone out into the beam of Phil's flashlight and...
The man takes a shaky breath.
It hurt to look at. Even now it hurts to think about. It was like an empty snowsuit, but where the person inside should be, there was only light. Glowing bright lights, shifting in color with the northern lights up above. I stumbled back, and Phil stepped in front of me, holding his hands out as if he could stop it. I hate to say it, but I ran. I turned tail and ran as fast as I could back to the campsite. Hearing Phil screaming only made me run faster. I grabbed my bag half full, leaving the tent behind. I didn't stop running until I passed out in the snow. When I woke up, I was in the hospital. Some hikers had found me, luckily before frostbite could set in. They never found Phil, just his flashlight, right where he'd been when it showed up. That's all. That's it.
There's a click and the tape is over. I feel a pit in my stomach as I close the ledger and set it aside. There's a morbid curiosity brewing in me. I'm hardly even paying attention when I pop open the cassette player, taking out the tape and put it back in its place in the box. I don't know what to say, other than I'm going to have a lot of listening to do.